Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. My mother ruins Karen and her cronies. The subject of this story is my mother. For the sake of this story, I'll call her Amber. She's in her late 70s and works for a women's clothing store which caters specifically to older clientele, and she's been working for this particular company for some 20 years now. The manager of the store is the absolute epitome of a Karen. So let's call her Karen. Extremely entitled, short-haired, chubby, cheats on her husband, and a blatant backstabber. Because the store is staffed by mostly older women, cliques tend to form. It's basically high school. Yes, older women can be that petty, and naturally Karen has her own cronies. During periods where no one is in the store, there also tends to be a ton of gossip, important for later. The assistant manager, let's call her Jackie, is also one of Karen's lackeys, and she has her head way up Karen's butt. If Karen does something, then Jackie isn't far behind, etc. Amber's a bit of a ball buster, and she has zero tolerance for garbage in her personal life. Karen and Jackie absolutely hated her, so much so that Karen routinely scheduled her for hours that are not especially good. Despite this, though, Amber still has her loyal clientele, and she always comes out on top against the other sales associates in total sales almost every quarter. As expected, this naturally feeds the horrible feedback loop with Karen and Jackie. When COVID hit, the company decided to cut all commission for sales associates. The commission was one of the main reasons why Amber endured Karen and Jackie's bullcrap. While she only made slightly above the state's minimum wage, with the commission, she could double or even triple that amount on good days. According to her, no other retailer in the area offered that kind of system, and it's pretty unlikely that the company will reinstate it even after COVID ends. Along with the cut in wages, the store was also forced to decrease the amount of hours that they could offer to their associates. Karen took this as a way to essentially bar Amber from working at the store. While other associates were getting 8 to 10 hours a week, Amber would see maybe 6 if she was lucky, and they would be during times of low customer traffic. Karen could get away with this because the district manager's also in her pocket. Along with the reduced hours and the removal of commissions, the store naturally had a mandatory mask policy for all employees and customers. Karen and her lackeys would often complain and moan about how unnecessary this was because, according to them, COVID is a hoax, and wearing masks makes you subservient to the government. There were a few incidents where Karen would let people without masks into the store despite the state and company mandates. Amber refused to rock the boat, however, so when this would happen, she would go to the back of the store and stay as far away from these people as possible. During this period of time, a friend of the family and a good friend of Amber's passed away due to complications from COVID. The funeral was set for a time when Amber was scheduled to work, so she called out that day. Karen and Jackie attacked Amber and the deceased, claiming that she must have caught the flu or been in bad health, and that Amber was feeding into the lie. Oh, how nice it must be to live such a privileged life. Not long after, a few of the store's loyal clients also passed away from COVID, and still Karen and Jackie, along with their groupies, maintained their narrative in the most vindictive way possible. Recently, the COVID restrictions have started to lift, and many of the clientele and employees have gotten their vaccines. Not Karen nor Jackie, though. To them, getting the vaccine would be like pumping poison into their veins. Instead, they decided to use fake COVID white cards with their information, effectively forging the documents. Amber, however, has suggested multiple times that they just get the vaccines because it's something that's mandated by the company. All employees must get vaccines when they're available, and given that almost all the employees are above the age of 60, they've been eligible for the shots for months now. Recently, Amber had an emotional conversation directly with Karen where she expressed her concern for her. "I just want you and your family to be safe, so please get the vaccine." Karen responded with her normal snide attitude, of course. A few days later, however, Karen sent a text message mentioning that she'd finally got the vaccine. She didn't. Amber replied that it was great and that she was happy for her. Karen just replied with a gif of some guy throwing up the middle finger. This was the beginning of the end for Amber. The incident. During one of her shifts, Amber overheard Karen and Jackie discussing how Amber was a moron and a sheep who bought the story about how Karen had taken the vaccine. During that same shift, Amber was working with a customer in the back, and some woman came into the store and stole a couple of items of clothing, probably totaling out to be $100 at most. Now, it's company policy that during all shifts there were to be at least 2 employees in the store, and during this particular stretch of time, Jackie was the only other person in the store. According to the video cameras, Jackie was up in the front of the store playing with her phone when this woman came in. Normally, if someone steals items from the store, the protocol is to avoid confronting them and instead just call security after they've left the store. This is mainly to avoid lawsuits and to protect the employees should these people choose to get violent. It's happened in the past. That evening, Amber received a call from Karen telling her that she was on probation pending an investigation for allowing this woman to steal from the store. Given the company's policy regarding theft, this really made no sense. It was at this point that Amber truly decided she'd had enough. Eventually, this probation led to Amber's dismissal, and the official reasoning was fairly vague: the revenge. One thing that I forgot to mention, a few years ago, Amber asked me to teach her how to record things on her phone, and luckily we live in a single consent state. As such, Amber had recordings of these women backstabbing her and gossiping about rather scandalous things dating back for years. She had gathered quite the collection because you never know when you need to cover your own butt. Over the years, Amber's gone to HR to no real avail, even with her recordings. Whether it be because they're also in the pocket of Karen or that they just don't care remains to be seen. The HR department works directly under the district manager. Amber's also very good at keeping any paperwork and proof of these visits, including some recordings. She also recorded the call where she was fired. Amber has a ton of very loyal clients who were pretty distraught when they learned of her dismissal. One client in particular runs a column at one of the major newspapers for a nearby city. We'll call her Casey. Since Amber was a part-time worker, she didn't really have much of a leg to stand on legally when it came to claiming a wrongful dismissal claim by legal means. However, that didn't mean that she didn't have any kind of recourse. She decided to attack the problem from multiple fronts. Amber compiled some of the greatest hits from her recording collection and had me email them off to corporate offices of the company, specifically the CEO, CTO, and basically every member of the board of directors. I fired a couple of bursts off to anyone who had any power that I could find. Along with those recordings, she wrote an email about how Karen, Jackie, and their group of sheep all refused to get vaccines and had falsified their vaccine documents to pass the company standards. Casey put Amber in touch with a columnist for the newspaper, and they got copies of the recordings, the text messages, and the dismissal phone call. They also did an interview, which was for an article and a TV slot on the local news. Amber discussed the commission cuts, clear favoritism, lack of intervention by HR, forged documents, company policy, the incident, etc., basically anything relevant to paint these women in a terrible light. Among some of these recordings were bits of gossip that included conversations regarding Karen's various boyfriends over the years. She was married, and Amber also wrote an anonymous email to the husband that included some of these recordings. The fallout. Crap hit the fan pretty fast, as you can imagine. Karen, Jackie, the district manager, and a couple of the groupies were immediately fired and put under investigation for forging documents. While forging a vaccine card isn't really something too serious, it could lead to some pretty hefty fines. There's no specific law against forging the vaccine white cards. However, because the white cards contain the government seal, well, you can just imagine how illegal that might be. Let's just say the FBI has stepped in on this one. One of the recordings featured Karen admitting to using forged cards. After the article and TV slot ran on the local news, the CEO reached out to Amber to formally apologize for the behavior of HR, the district manager, Karen, and Jackie. She even went so far as to offer Amber a raise, but Amber declined because she found a job that actually paid a fair wage and let her work on her own time. The real B of it for the CEO and the board was the fact that their employees were breaking the company policy for a store that exclusively catered to older women regarding a virus that tends to kill older people. They caught some heavy public backlash for this. Karen's husband seems to have separated from her after finding out about her infidelity. Whether or not this will lead to a divorce remains to be seen. The best part for Amber, many of her clients started coming to her new store, and again, she's kicking butt as one of the best sales associates. And our next story. A woman paid the price for building a house in such a way that everyone could see how rich she was. Here we go. Want to build your house there? Okay, but all right, we'll build it there, I guess. Backstory. The friend, henceforth referred to as F, worked for a construction company. One day he was hired by an incompetent lady, IL, who wanted her house built by a river. This meant they'd have to dam the river, build a hill, etc. IL didn't understand that and thought they were wasting her time, so she didn't let them take the precautions. Building a house by the river is hard. A slow river, it's flowing, so you have to be careful not to get any boards in the water. F tries to build on a hill, but IL comes back in the nick of time and stops him, saying she wants a view of the river from her basement. Of course, that meant she had to sign 2 to 3 more agreements. F starts building and gets everything done in 3 months. IL's not satisfied and wants the basement window edges underwater so people can see how rich she is. They do exactly that. They do for 3 to 4K more USD. Windows about 3 feet into the river and almost a foot underwater. They build stairs to accommodate for drop. IL is satisfied and they leave. Cue lots of problems. Winter. IL sees that water rose 6 to 7 inches and is happy. Next day, fine. There's a couple of hairline fractures. IL's very careful to document the damage. She thinks someone threw rocks at her windows. Heavy snow, water rushing past and rose another 3 to 4 inches. IL loves it, flaunting it to her neighbors and friends. 2 days later, the window fails. Too much pressure from the water that stopped, apparently eroding the bottom part, and the hairline fracture from the ice hitting her window gave it a weak point. All in all, she had to pay $20K in repairs to drain, refinish, and paint her basement, then get new windows. Also, she had a dam installed a few feet upstream. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.